Hello, that was Omega, having no consideration for personal space. I got back from work 2 hours ago. About oh, didn't thankfully it didn't rain at work, but yeah. So the story that I'm trying to develop, it's a whole comic universe. So I want it to be mostly told from the street level perspective, but as there's more stories to as time goes on, there'll be more stories to tell, and there's going to be comics for different interest groups depending on the size of the audience, and this will be a subscription rather, a prescription for comics. I'd rather not publish a comic than have a mediocre one. So whatever that means in terms of character development and the overall trajectory, then that's what we're gonna have to do whatever we need to make a really high quality universe. I don't want to have crossovers. I don't want to have I don't want to have a shared universe in an over encompassing way. So there won't be any DC or Marvel crossovers or whatever other things come around. I want my own cinematic universe. I'd say that in terms of producing quality movies, there's plenty of incredibly talented actors that aren't all that well known, and that won't be connected to a competing. They wouldn't have any non-competes. So, for what that's worth. But yeah, that's down the road. I do think long term, but there's also practical aspects in the here and now. What I can do, I can write and I can provide strategic direction. Don't think I don't think I'm a good enough artist to really develop characters on my own. And the other thing is, I don't want artists to establish canon. I know other people believe very much in that direction, but I think it's foolishness, utter foolishness. I've seen great works, and I've seen quite mediocre works in DC Comics, for example. So I don't want that to happen. Comics are not a new medium, so it's not like in the 40s when they were kind of getting started, and people could just have a very basic character and have it be somewhat popular. There's fierce competition now. That being said, I'm not going to rush to create a cinematic universe. I have no interest in doing that, in rushing. I want a rich comic history first. I'm not going to do a lot of multiversal stuff, even within the universe. I'm not going to do a lot of parallel realities either. I don't think that's very. It's a lazy way. Generally, it's a lazy way of doing things, and I don't want to be lazy. Now, yes, there'll be some stories with that involving that, but it's more of a what if type scenario, or someone's imagination, or yeah, something that's not relevant and will never be relevant to the main characters, but it's something that we the audience knows. Things like that. I'm very intrigued by the idea of one conversation or one event changing things for one person, or for um, like the its importance is not revealed until later, and it's not relevant to it's not necessarily relevant to the character until later. Maybe they don't even realize it, but it changed their life somehow. I like that idea a lot. If I did an Asimov's work, um, so the foundation, they put that in there a couple of times, um, where where a little piece of information somehow changes the story in an enormous way, but it's realistic. Also, it's true to the story. It's not forced. For example, there was one where some characters were talking in one scene, and I think I think it was someone in the second foundation, and they were saying that um, during the mule's rise, one piece of information was not submitted in the report: the name, the mule, and that threw off their early calculations, so they didn't go in and destroy Calgon, which they would have done if he was there, and he was such a powerful he has such powerful telepathic abilities, but they didn't include that in the report, so they didn't realize that he had a pathological isolation from humanity as well as megalomania. So at least I presume that's what they were going to do, but it was too late. So one little piece of information, one little alteration changed things dramatically. Oh, I love the TV series, by the way. It's There's some things that they really don't need to put in there, and kind of bore me, to be honest. I have no idea why they have certain scenes. Like, it doesn't seem to build to anything, or serve anything relevant. But I don't know. Cast is pretty talented. Um, I'd love to find out the mule's story arc. I think they're gonna go for the book's explanation, the book storyline ultimately, but I could be wrong, because from the clips I've seen, it could definitely go either way. Yeah, because that makes sense. Um, if somebody wants to be incognito, to have a front man or woman to take the public scrutiny. And also, the mule would have the most um, formidable and capable spy network in the history of humanity, because he had people who were emphatically loyal, people who would normally be completely above suspicion, turned traitor. Well, not really traitor, but effectively the same thing. What was it? Converted? Yeah. I don't know if they use that in the TV series. I don't have Apple TV right now, so I haven't seen that. But they do show his abilities directly instead of kind of talking about them, which I kind of like, but you got to make a judgment call. It's like how how do the powers actually work, and you got to show it in a way that the audience sees to some degree. Um, so the timing and the timing and um, I'm not sure if it's permanent in the TV series because in the books it seemed to be. Um, so I don't know. There's a lot of ways they could go. Um, in my comics, and I'll insist on this, and also in the cinematic universe, I want the abilities to make sense within the universe. They might be weird from our perspective, but they have to make sense in the universe. There's no, oh, we don't know, or oh, it's a cosmic ability. Yeah, it's a cosmic ability. What does that mean? And that's what I'll have the writers wrestle with. And if they're any good, they'll surprise me. If they're not, well, I don't need to be surprised, but I like to be surprised because usually I can tell, I can chart what's going to happen. So, yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have something that I didn't anticipate. That's what creativity is. Really, it's not it's not purely logical. It's not rational necessarily. Um, it's interpreting data. So it's a higher form of an intellect, basically. Now, not everyone who is creative produces something that's creative, but um, if people use their highest forms of intellect, there is creativity heavily involved in that. It's not an abstraction, it's part of who we are. So, yeah. Unfortunately, creative professions don't tend to make as much money because it takes a lot to impress the public to make your work um, economically viable if it's a creative enterprise. So it may be something that the author or the artist feels is very good and they're very proud of it, but if it's not commercially viable, it's not going to be a viable way to make a living. And that's hard to reconcile because it's not based on effort versus output. Like most jobs, are paid based on doing the job successfully. Not so in creativity, unless you're a staff writer or something like that. But um, and I'm not sure how to reconcile that. Because if I'm running a publishing house of some sort, I'm not. I can't pay people to produce something that is not going to be commercially viable or may not be. I need something reliable. Um, and yet, the creative um, jobs cannot be secondary, not in a comic line. So that's the thing, and the solution to that is obvious. It's hire people and promote people who get marketable comics. Unfortunately, marketable comics are boring. They're generic. They're the cookie cutter basically, or they say use characters in a way that is boring and predictable, and I don't want to do that. So when I say I'm going to be publishing this, I will, but that's not going to be one of the primary things. The creativity the forging of the new is going to be paramount, which means taking a lot of risk and losing money until things strike out and become successful, and it gains a following, a large following. That's when the commercial success comes in, and I'm going to continue with that. I'm going to do what some companies do. I'm going to make sure that the people who are producing, who are forging ahead, and making really incredible things are left alone. Pay them, let them keep doing their work, and leave them alone. Um, so yeah, they'll get a salary and they'll be let loose to do their work. Um, the other aspects of the company will be run in a more typical manner. But that's because it's going to be creating different products and marketing them and distributing them and other things. Depends on how successful we are. But this isn't something where like start in a basement and then try to get a little bit of a following, and then make a little money, and then go hungry for a few weeks or whatever until you can scrape up enough money to get started again. I don't believe that works all that well, and it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work for what I'm looking for, because what I'm looking for is to set people free to do their best work, even if it's not commercially viable. Just explore the creativity and produce things that may be seeds to something much greater. So this would be like a think tank almost, or something like that. Yeah. Creativity lab. I'd say that's probably all that we're going to be doing. And then for the cinematic universe, we'll draw on the comics, but we'll mostly just we'll have it be separate, because comics don't necessarily translate to the visual medium. I know they're a visual medium, but the movie visual medium, I don't think they necessarily translate as well as you might think. So, and yes, if people tell me, Mr. Tito, that's absurd. They go hand in hand. Like, okay, so my character, I'll explain my method a little bit, but the purpose of a conversation is to find out information, exchange information, ideally. So I'm not necessarily like conversation is not necessarily about one thing, and especially if it's if it's a work meeting, it is definitely not about one thing. Well, yeah, not if it's a comics. So, yes, that'd be a bit of a more involved discussion. I don't know where Omega went. Probably the living room. All right. Well, it's going on 20 minutes. Stop reading. I hope everyone has a really good day. If the weather is getting Like sometimes the pressure seems to get to people and like put them in a bad mood. A lot of people are affected by this. Um, it's important to try to fight it because it can really, really get people to spiral. I know it's happened with me before, so just be wary of that. It's not uncommon, and it's not talked about all that much. Like people just think it's not a big deal, and it probably isn't. But for some people, it is. So just be wary of that.